Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks Seedstars for the amazing organization. I've been following this now for a couple of years, and these guys do amazing job, always bringing these people together, and kind of entering your dream, because you're all startups, and from the startup point you want money, and you want more money, and from the investment point of view, they want money, and they want much money back from you. That's what they expect from the startups. So it's all about money. We call this in Turkish para. I like that word very much. So we're going to talk about investors here on this panel, so that's very nice. So for all the startups who are pitching here, I can only wish you a lot of success. It's not easy at all. I have been there, and I hope you will make a lot of money. First of all, I want to ask the panelists here to introduce themselves. Of course, I will start with the lady. I'm from Belgium, so I'm a very polite man. So, like, do your 1 minute pitch to the audience, please, about yourself.
So my name is Dadasheva. I work for Almaz Capital. It's a venture capital fund headquartered in California with offices around Europe, in Berlin, in London, in Moscow, and we have also some other offices in some other people in Warsaw, in Czech Republic, and in Kiev. Our main strategy is to invest in companies coming from developing countries in Eastern Europe and help them go to more developed markets. That includes some European countries, and most of all, it includes the United States. We prefer to invest in B2B enterprise software because that's where our main expertise is. But we do invest in different kinds of deep tech startups and any companies that has created some value and some competitive advantage based on technology.
So, additionally to your introduction, I also want to ask you, why the hell are you in this world? I mean, why do you like this world, where you're in now? Just very short, very short.
Yeah, so we are in this world because we believe that...
You, personally. What do you like about this?
Personally, I like a lot the innovation in technology and what it can drive and how it can drive change in different markets. So I have technological background and I find it really fascinating.
So you're actually kind of a nerd in the money world?
Definitely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, thanks. My name is Kairat. I work in Astana International Financial Center and responsible for fintech development. So AIFC is, up to now, it's only jurisdiction based on English common law in post-Soviet countries. And so we're mostly dedicated to develop financial services, including capital markets, Islamic finance, asset management, private banking, and one of our main pillars is fintech. What do we do in order to develop fintech? So, first of all, we have a separate regulator, separate from our central bank, and it's independent and very flexible. For example, they have created a sandbox in order to attract startups and existing fintech companies to make traction, to work without getting license, full license, because it's quite complicated in financial world. From another side, we have created a fintech hub. So this conference is in the premises of fintech hub, which is dedicated to build comfortable ecosystem for fintech startups, to develop networking, make special programs. We had one program last year with Seedstars, and it was acceleration program. And this year, so we are organizing such events like this. We are partner here. So we develop fintech. We don't do direct investments, but we attract VCs, we attract accelerators, we attract partners, develop network, do everything which can be useful for fintech startups and existing companies in Kazakhstan and region.
What is your personal drive to do this?
I think that financial services should be develop dramatically and like change dramatically, and especially it's very actual here in Kazakhstan in this region.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Bas?
Good morning. Thanks. Okay, I want to get back to the people, the person. I think there's some sort of development in somebody's life that you kind of start when you study, then you go get work, payroll, then you maybe get very good expertise, you become a consultant, then all of a sudden your knowledge is valuable and startups come to you and say, hey, we want advice. Then you start saying at some point, okay, I want some advisory board. Then at some point you say, hey, but these are really funky companies, so I want to put some of my savings in there. And then all of a sudden, that was the story of my life, I looked back and I saw that the companies together cost $700 million. And I was like, hey, I am not a venture capitalist, I'm not an investor, but somehow I got #1 angel investor in the Netherlands, top 10 in CIS. And that's when people said, hey, maybe you should use some of our money to do that same thing you're doing. So I'm a startup in myself because I only in April launched my first VC fund. It's a Dutch fund, Acrobator. Acrobator.vc. This is the consulting company.
He's a marketing guy. You can see that he comes with a T-shirt. It's
Yes.
the call to action is there. In
That's
person.
the thing. Like indeed, the last 20 years have been growth hacking, and this is the angle of this fund. It's the only growth hacking VC fund in the world. We basically look at a startup like a Rubik's Cube. We see like, wait a second, where is the piping wrong for the internet conversions, the funnel, all the marketing sides and the sales side. And that's where we really see it's like you give water to a plant. That's what startups need. They need growth and capital. And it's not just the financial side, it's the other part. So I've been a founder of a leading travel company, co-founder in Russia. I've been through what you guys are going through, and basically I want always to put cash where my kind of wise advisors are. And that's where we stand. It's a 20 million euro fund. We hope to raise another 20 million this year. And we do tickets from 50,000 to 500,000 and then reserve 1.5 million for follow-on. We are sector agnostic, except biotech and IoT. We are stage agnostic. We do anything from pre-seed to Series B. We have very good relationship with large international players that are looking what is in our pipeline. And the last thing is that we are even, what do you call it? You got sector agnostic, geo agnostic. Yeah, we basically invest anywhere in the world we like. And there's no exceptions there.
So they're agnostic, so you get it, huh? They're agnostic. Okay, Murat, please.
Hi everybody, my name is Murat Abdrakhmanov. I'm serial entrepreneur and founder of few tech company in Kazakhstan. And a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, I started working as a venture investor and spent for this time about $10 million already. Approximately in 10 projects.
Still smiling when you say that. That is a good sign, huh?
Yeah.
I spent 10 million.
I invest money in a company in Ukraine. Maybe you know it's a company called Genesis. In Thailand, it's a company called 2C2P, most famous payment system in Thailand and few other Southeast countries. Also, the company in Africa, Gigi, it's classified #1 in Nigeria, and of course in Kazakhstan. This panel discussion about outside look to this region. I am insider.
I'm still trying to figure out what is the title of the panel, but we'll just go on.
Okay, and I'm half invest in the famous company here in called the Choco family. Also a very famous company called Nomi, Aldona Tkachenko. Also the company Arion Ayot, company HR Messenger. And also I have the, I am deeply involved in strategy of the company and give great support to the company.
What is your personal drive to do this?
Make money.
You heard it, huh? Make money. That's the most honest answer of an investor you can have. So it's not about, I want to create impact, I want to make a better world, blah, 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 blah. No, he's an investor and he says, I want return. That's it. So that's a very, thank you for the explanation, that is very useful. So for these guys to understand, so we have here 3 investors, I want to understand your ticket size first. Because they are asking money, so you have to know who to ask it now, because maybe you don't you're not in that range. So what is your ticket size?
So we invested Series A, so the ticket size is usually for the first investment from $2 to $7 million. And on average, we invest 15 in company because we allocate reserves for follow-ons, and we prefer to maintain our share. And the ceiling is to invest 20% of the fund in one company.
Yeah.
So we've never done that. I think maximum investment in one company was 20.
20, okay. You're not an investor, but do you have an idea? How was the investments here in the fintech?
So here in Central Asia, in Kazakhstan, tickets are not quite big, and most of startups are on seed and probably late seed stage. That's why. So I think if you are looking for potential pipeline of startups here, so it's better to do more seed investments, more investments in seed round with smaller check, and then just looking who is surviving.
Yeah. What are we talking about? $100,000 or less, more?
So I can't say a certain number. I mean, but it's about 100 from 50,000 to 500.
The 500,000.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Bas, what is your ticket size?
It's from 50,000 euros to 500,000 with a sweet spot around between 100 and 300.
Yeah, so you're in the early stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes, as I said, there's big guys that say, hey, we want your smart money kind of growth hack cash in there, so we do the 300,000 in a very big round in a Series B.
Yeah. Murat, what is your idea about that?
Regular size and seed stage, it's about 200,000. And if it's round A or B, it's from $500,000 to $2 million.
Yeah.
Last round was 2 weeks ago, $1.5 million to Choka.
Okay, yeah, that's nice, nice. So the topic here of the day, of the morning, I have to read it again because I'm always kind of forgetting the title, an external look to the regional investment scene. So I was not sure what it meant, so I sent you some questions. The questions are very simple. For me, it's always very nice to go back in time. By the way, I didn't present myself, so I am Patrick Bosteels. I'm from Belgium. As you can see, I don't live in Belgium anymore because in Belgium we don't wear these trousers. They're called shalvar, so I'm living and working in Turkey for the last 7 years. We started with Stageco, which is a platform for startups. We do hackathons, startup weekends, we do acceleration programs, anything that has to do with knowledge. Because in my experience, what I have now in Turkey, and not only in Turkey, but also in the region, and I have been here before in Kazakhstan, so it's the thing that we miss, and Bas already talked about it, it's not only about money, but it's also about smartness. You're all very young people, most of you have never had a company, so if I give you money, I'm not even sure you can manage that money, because you have never done that before. Most of the time, they have never even worked in a company before. So I believe that knowledge transfer and experience transfer is more important than money. In that sense, I follow what Bas was saying. So I have been doing this for 7 years. We have a co-working space in Urla. So if you don't know where Urla is the coolest town in Turkey. Not in terms of temperature, it's warm, but it's on the sea. They have the good food, and it's very cheap to live there. That's where a startup should be, by the way, not in a big city. So that's what I'm doing. So going back to the topic now. So I will read it again. An external look to the regional investment scene. I still don't understand what it is, but let's talk about the future. So I want to have 3 trends that we want to discuss with you. The first one is geography. So wherever you are born is very important in what you will become. And you didn't choose where you were born. So that's why I think this topic about geography is interesting. So I will start with you. If I'm born in Moscow or I'm born in Silicon Valley, that has a big impact on my potential. So what do you see now as the future? Is Silicon Valley still the benchmark? Or do you say it doesn't matter anymore? We are worldwide and investments can be as high in Moscow as in Kazakhstan as in Silicon Valley. What is your take on that?
So I believe it doesn't matter where you're born, because great talent is born everywhere. It's more important where you want to go with your company, with your project, with your dream. And in these terms, it much more depends where the market is for your company. Since we invest mostly in enterprise software, the market for innovative enterprise software is usually in US. For the first few years after innovation starts, usually about 95% of it is consumed in US. All the big corporations have innovation divisions, and even if it's not a US company, innovation divisions are usually in US. And they have this division to test and to try startups, and they want to be competitive against each other, so they're willing to try whatever new is coming to the market. After several years, around 5 to 7 years, it comes to 75% of innovation enterprise sphere in US, and the rest goes to Europe and the rest of the world. But it's when you speak about B2B and enterprise, and especially deep tech. When you go to consumer markets, when you go to regulated markets like fintech, for example, all these markets are much more geography specific. It's really hard to do a consumer startup if you are sitting somewhere in Eastern Europe and targeting US market. You don't really understand how consumers think, what they need, and to do, if you want to target US, you need to go there. But if you want to target local markets, and sometimes all these barriers like regulations or local knowledge or just having different language, it helps to create consumer stories locally. And that's also something that we believe, that local champions will emerge locally.
So, Kairat, do you agree with this? Because you just said something interesting. You say here in Kazakhstan we are at the start of everything. So do you agree with, like, you can be born anywhere and you can still have the same chances, or do you think like being like here, born in Kazakhstan, or it might, for me also in Turkey, it's much harder to get in there?
I totally agree with Tatyana. So it doesn't matter where was you born and where do you live now. First of all, I think that the best startup story, most of successful startup stories are made by global startups. I mean, global companies, which first was startup targeting global market, not like local market only. That's how. So that's why they grow fast. And I know the story here in Kazakhstan. Guys have developed an app, and so it's startups. It's still existing startup, and have been targeting U.S. market because of like specific of business. So it was about it was fintech startup working with capital markets, and most developed capital market in the U.S. That's why they sitting in Kazakhstan. They have attracted investments from European investor and targeted U.S. market. I think that's so. They are still in process, but I believe it can be a successful startup. So it's one example. Second one, of course, fintech, as Tatyana said, has specific of regulation, and that's why we have developed sandbox approach, which allows startups to test here their product in a smaller probably market, but they can understand all processes, build business processes, and just test local market, and then just go to another markets abroad. And we know, so we have stories about startups from Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan coming here and pitched to, for example, Dubai International Financial Center's colleagues, and now they, on the next stage, going to Dubai. So it doesn't matter where are you now, it doesn't matter where you live, and especially where have you born. Yeah. So today, all the world are open. Yeah. And it's easy to do business even in another in another world. I know
they would like to hear that.
Yeah. So I just want to make them sure that it's not like, don't think local, think like globally, and try to compete globally, and you will succeed in your local market.
Yeah, thank you. Bas, I'm still not convinced because, for example, I know that you're from Holland. If I look at Holland, if you are born there, your DNA is you're a trader and you speak very, very fluent English. that's for me a huge advantage when you want to go global. So what is your take in this?
Well, firstly, we live 4 meters under the sea, so that's... But anyway, I think this whole panel is in unison about the idea that it doesn't really matter where you live. And that's where we're actually the luckiest generation that ever lived on this planet, however long we will still live on this planet. But like when Leonardo da Vinci, as I just learned kind of already, was thinking about wonderful helicopters at the time. Yeah, I know the image, I even had a t-shirt about it. But those times when there was no mobility, then you could just say, okay, this is my market and I can maybe travel for 100 kilometers and sell my product. Now we have boundary-less access, as you also mentioned. So that's what I see. If I quickly analyze like the top 4 or 5 performers in my portfolio, I see that there's a company, Miro.com, from the Ural Mountains, and basically now they have headquarters in San Francisco and in Amsterdam. Actually, I seduced them to come to Amsterdam. And that's a really amazing business that already when they were in the Ural Mountains in Perm, they already sold 3/4 of their service to the United States. So that's beautiful. Like, I think actually the one we are jointly shareholders in, Choco Family, I was the first one. But you put more cash in.
He's a marketeer, you cannot hide it.
Sorry, I have to brag now and then. I'm not that tall, so I need to compensate, you know. But anyway.
But she has high heels. Somebody has high heels here.
Oh yeah, Eugenia, yes. Yeah, I saw that, yeah. But anyway, getting back to the topic.
Yeah.
So those startups, they target various markets. There's a Dutch startup in the HR tech. They sell to all the global companies their technology. Everybody is very happy with the fact that it's boundaryless internet. So I don't have much to add.
Yeah.
I would love to attack the statement, but
I know.
Times
Murat, so everybody is like agreeing on the fact that where you're born is not important now, but in the end, I also hear that when they are becoming successful, then also here in the first case, they go to the States, they go to Silicon Valley, or they go to places where they are better. So you are investing in different startups. Do they stay where they are, or are they also going to Silicon Valley?
Some of the company go in the Silicon Valley as well, but I would like to say that it's maybe doesn't matter where is you're born, but it's very important where is you grew and where is you graduated. Because business, it's not only bright idea, it's also its social connection, it's understanding of the cultural and mentality of the market and people behavior on a definite market. And I know that every startup in Kazakhstan, where we invest money, we are pushing to go outside from the country, and they try to do it, and very successful, by the way, but it's really very difficult. And if we look to Chinese markets, almost unavailable, because the cultural and language barriers exist and so high, it's very difficult to go in. It's not easy. Much easier, of course, going to the CIS markets, and a little bit more difficult going to Europe and US market. But it's some of examples still exist. For instance, the guys from the Kiev launched a very good project called Better Me. It's a fitness app, which right now on the top of this kind of application US market, and has the 1 million paid users. It's a great story.
Yeah.
Yes,
you said something that I personally I'm very interested in, because I'm going back to where are you born.
It's not really doesn't matter. It's very matter where you grew, where you have graduate, where you have social community.
But I want to come back to this now, education. So where I'm born is indeed important for my education, because I have 5 kids in Belgium, and I like to stay them in Belgium because education system is very good. So I give them an extra push actually to their future. If you are born in Turkey in a small village, it's very hard to come into the very good universities and then have this outlook to the outside world. Because you were talking about education.
Yes, I talk that education, it's help to build business communication and to be involved in society deeply. And it's definitely reflect to how you will build the company.
Very good. Tatyana, I'm coming back to you. So now I want to talk about quality. So I see that people have pitches that are getting better. But also is also the quality of the startups getting better? Because of course, thanks to the democratization of technology, anyone can be now a startup. Of course, now we have like the best of CE now here. But do you also see an increase in the quality of the startup? I see that the pitching is getting better, but are you also convinced about the quality of the startups now?
Well, I think the quality of the startup is not about its pitch. So it's
Guys,
about...
I'm very sorry. You can pitch good or bad. Fuck you.
So it's about many things. It's about how well positioned is the product. It's about, do you really understand the problem on the market? It's about, do you know how to go to the market, how to get the leadership position? So it's about many things. And I think it's very important for the companies, especially if they're not yet in the right market, to do this before going there, to do this homework, to get this understanding, to find the right people to join your team or advise you or in some other role help you, because it's very important to know how and what are you going to do. And for us as investors, it's very important who is going to do in your team this. So VC work is a lot about HR.
Yeah. But do you see an improvement? In 5 years' time, do you say now, yeah, actually the quality in terms of the conversion of I invest and things come 15 times back to me, is that getting better, yes or no, for me, as a question?
I mean, it is what we do, so when we invest, we get really involved and we help, and we do this HR work, and we help the companies in many other ways. So once we invest, yes, for sure. But I also wanted to say that in general, I think the quality of startups in terms of understanding this, in terms of doing this work trying to figure all the things out, it's different phases in the market, and now the phase is in developing countries is getting to the level when it's not just create a product because you want to create a product and you think it's cool, but it's also to try to address the right market and figure out what the right market is.
Can you give the people, especially for the startups here, can you give an idea how many applications you have per year?
Several thousands, I think 3,000, 500, something like this.
Yeah, and per year, how many do you select from these?
In the end, we invest 3-4 companies per year.
Yeah, you hear this? That's a lot of applications for the investments, huh? Yes, Kairat, what is your take on this?
I think that overall, in a VC world, quality of startups getting better because market are being more developed. And startups now know all this marketing, tools and ways of promoting and how to do business. And most of business models have been already tested. And most of startups using existing models, which is good. In terms of our region, I think that in Central Asia and post-Soviet countries overall, startups getting much better. So I think that objectives is that several startups, even in Kazakhstan, have raised capital, significant amount of capital, including from international VCs, as you see. And for example, Nomi, which Murat have mentioned, raised money through crowdfunding. So from during global crowdfunding campaign, which is very good sign too, I think. And what I think that what we have to do, so Astana Hub here and FinTech Hub and other Kazakh special entities for develop it's more about human capital. It's more about talent development. And what we have to do now, I think, is to help and make number of startups grow. And I think that quality is good.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Bas?
Well, basically, I agree. I've seen an amazing trend upwards in the last 10 years, especially in this region. I do have to say that I noticed that the only thing I'm mildly disagreeing with, that the quantity of startups should maybe grow, but it's also that we need to fix the mismatch The numbers are talking about the internal rate of return of funds in Europe is minus 0.1%, which means you can better throw the money out of the window. Startups spend 60% of their time in 3 years for fundraising, and 90%, as you say, or I believe it's about 70% die in the first 5-6 years. So what is there? We can probably all do some maintenance on trying to make more gaps and build more bridges, and I like what Seedstars does in this area and other accelerators. So that's what I wanted to add.
Murat?
Quality and quantity of the startups in this area, it's grow year to year, and but still not enough. And if truly said, I have planned to launch the venture fund in Kazakhstan, and up to end of this year. But when we calculate, it's not a problem to find money and raise money for this fund, but it's a problem to find the startups to spend it.
If I look at now, just at the region itself, so for example, in Turkey, also the government is doing a lot of incentives there to help. Like, how is it here in Kazakhstan? Do you also have the government who is actively helping?
Government puts many efforts, and particularly here in Astana Hub, they provides very, how to say it, very attractive tax approach, and give some support for the companies, and so many steps. But I think that maybe it's not really enough, and need push more. And invest money in the company, seed investment, and so on.
I want to go back to Kairat.
Probably I can add. So I think that government in Kazakhstan does a lot for startup support last several years. So again, here, so we are sitting in a fintech hub of AIFC. So in opposite is Astana Hub, which is very huge effort from government side. Including startup support in terms of education, in terms of even grants, tax exemptions, and other programs. And why we are doing this? Because Kazakhstan doesn't have big amount of probably talented people in comparison with, for example, even Russia or Belarus or Ukraine. That's why, so when I was talking about the amount of startups, I was talking about our region especially, because we are so in Europe, for example, there are a lot of startups and there are problem of the quality. But here we are lack of amount of startups. And that's why we are doing our best, not even to develop our local talents, but to attract, it's a sign for me, but to attract talents from Belarus, Russia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, etc. So, and I think that we will succeed in 2 or 3 years. We will have almost half of talents here from our neighbor countries, I believe. Thanks.
So a big applause for the investors here and representatives.